Investigator Crawford, let's start with this. Why would your fingerprints be on Mr. Chen's vehicle?
Yes, so I just want to say this is the first time in any of my investigations that my fingerprints have been on any item of evidence that's been reported in Avis. On November 29th, 2022, I went to Nolensville, Tennessee, in an attempt to locate Mr. Jason Chen at his parents' residence at Ashburn Court. Upon the execution of the search warrant, originally prior to that, we met at Nolensville Police Department to link up with the Nolensville PD to include one of their detectives and members from the Williamson County Sheriff's Department to assist with the execution of the search warrant at the residence of Jason Chen's parents. We met up with them. We had tactical and strategic planning on the execution of the search warrant, trying to figure out the best and safest way possible to execute that search warrant. Subsequently, we drove to that location in execution of the search warrant. The plan was to have Williamson County there as well. They decided not to respond. Due to the minimal amount of law enforcement on scene, I assisted with the protective sweep of the residence. We talked about protective sweeps earlier, I think, in some testimony. During the protective sweep, I would like to have gloves on my hand, but due to the unknown nature of that residence, the reasoning for being there, I did not wear the gloves on my hand. During the execution of the search warrant, in the matter of which we were there, and the crime that we believed to happen at that point, I did have my firearm outside of my holster in attempt, to make sure it was safe, because unknown people in the residence, I wasn't familiar with every person that could potentially be inside that residence to that point. I then began to go around the residence to attempt to make sure no other people were in there other than Jason Chen and his parents. When I was going through the garage area, I don't know if you remember the picture earlier, from the garage area at Ashburn Court. It was extremely cluttered. And to be thorough and make sure that it's safe, so crime scene investigators, particularly our crime scene technicians that responded, are civilians and they're not armed. To be able to safely carry out their jobs and duties and feel protected while they're doing so, us as law enforcement officers, we try to make it safe for them so they don't have to feel unsafe. I subsequently went in the garage area to make it safe or clear of any potential residents or parties or any potential people that could contaminate anything further. As I was going into the garage, I made my way around the front of the vehicle. There's about less than a foot of space. I do have small legs. It wasn't big enough, but I had big feet. Slightly clumsy. As I was making my way around the front of the vehicle, I had my firearm in my right hand. As I was going across, it hit the back of the wall. It had a little dressers thing there. I fell forward. My left hand hit the front of the vehicle. I actually told the crime scene investigator, if you find prints there, they're mine. At which point later on, I was contacted by Lieutenant Franklin, and he asked to request that I needed to submit an updated fingerprints to include a partial palm print, because he believed that possibly my fingerprint found in something. At which point I submitted that during the investigation. I was personally fingerprinted / palm printed in this investigation. At which point that was submitted and ultimately confirmed to be my left hand.
Okay, thank you. Also, we recall in Lieutenant Franklin's testimony, prints from a Jim Cooper were located on Jasmine's vehicle. In the course of your investigation, did you learn who Jim Cooper is?
Yes, I did.
And who is Jim Cooper related to Jasmine Pace?
Yes. So, taking back the attention to November 26th of 2022, Jasmine Pace's parents used the My Chevy app to attempt to locate their daughter. They took them to the area of Mount Creek Road, where they ultimately recovered her 2021 Chevy Equinox. Upon arrival, patrol officer was called out. They asked for an investigation to be started, which missing persons were notified. We ultimately know that no investigator responded that night. At which point, the patrol officer instructed that they could tow the vehicle back to their residence. During that process, after the patrol officers left, the family did contact a local locksmith company, which Jim Cooper works at. He did respond, attempt to get the vehicle. They ultimately decided to tow the car back. Jim Cooper is a locksmith that the parents had contact with after the 26th.
Thank you. Now, you have been You have witness questions about the location that was shared with Katrina Bean in the early morning hours, 11/23/2022. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And you were the investigator in November of 2022 who was investigating this case. Is that correct?
In November 27th, I was brought into the investigation of 2022.
Were you present when Katrina Bean scrolled up in her text messages to show you that location drop?
Yes, I was personally present. Actually, when she told me about the location drop, I personally requested that we observe those, at which point I actually requested a crimes investigator come out and document those in photographs.
And was that done?
Yes.
And what time was the location shared from Jasmine's phone?
On her phone, it actually had her name as Jazzy with a picture. I verified, I looked at the contact itself, had her click on it, and observed it to be the phone number that we know to be the victim's, the 423-664-2024. Subsequently, I looked at the content of the text message group, at which point I observed a pin drop location that was shared on November 23rd, 2022 at 2:18 a.m.
2:18 a.m.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You've heard testimony about the Truist bank account. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
To your knowledge, did you locate anything in the course of this investigation that let you know that Ms. Pace had a Truist bank account?
Yes.
What was that?
Many things. One, contacted the family. They let me know that she had a Truist bank account. She also had multiple documents, receipts, ledgers per se, deposit slips inside of her vehicle. She had multiple things with her name associated with that with the Truist bank account.
Thank you. Going back to a crime scene at Mr. Chen's apartment, you'll recall that there have been questions asked about the testing of the large piece of carpet. And do you recall what piece of evidence was evidence marker number 6?
Evidence marker 6 was the small carpeted section that was collected just on the edge of the tile area.
Was that carpet sample connected to the large piece of carpet that's been sitting in this courtroom?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury in what room at Mr. Chen's apartment blood spatter was found on the walls?
In the area, the bathroom area.
Ms. Morrison entered an exhibit that contained a large amount of text messages between Jasmine and Jason. Have you reviewed those?
Yes.
They were from a forensic download of Mr. Chen's phone.
Yes, that's correct.
And what year do they go back to?
The earliest for that specific text message group versus the contents of the forensic download all the way back to, I believe, November 3rd of 2021.
Are you aware of what social media app Ms. Pace and Mr. Chen met on?
I observed a text message that described the app that they met on.
And what was that?
Bumble?
Okay. And did it appear after they initially started speaking that they initially had hung out with each other?
There is a short window in the November timeframe of 2021 where conversations were had in terms of text messages. It appears for a few days, they communicate, and that communication completely drops off until late April of 2022.
Okay. You were here for opening statements, weren't you, Investigator Crawford?
Yes, I was.
Have you gone through Mr. Chen and Ms. Pace's text messages from April of 2022 when they began to speak again? Is that your testimony?
Yes.
Have you gone through the messages from that point until the week that Ms. Pace was murdered?
Yes, I have.
Were there any arguments?
No.
Any disagreements?
No.
Did the text messages make them seem particularly serious with each other?
No, it appears to be casual conversations. I guess I would liken it to people getting to know each other.
But they did certainly see each other quite a bit between the period of April and November, particularly more towards the end. Is that true?
Correct.
And did it seem to you that she was most often going over to his apartment?
Yes,
Was he asking her to come over?
he did.
In late October, did Mr. Chen invite Ms. Pace to go to Chicago with him?
Yes, he did.
Are there text messages that reflect that?
Yes.
Are they apparent that he had asked her to go to Chicago?
Yes.
And do you know if they actually went to Chicago?
Yes.
And after they get back from Chicago, anything abnormal about their text messages different from the previous text messages from that trip? Anything different? Any arguments?
No.
Did the correspondence seem the same as it had seemed since April?
Yes.
Let's go through some of these messages.
Councilor Crawford. Where there was a limiting instruction earlier. Again, we're getting into details now. Again, not to use them for the truth of the matter asserted. You may hear things like that they perhaps went to Chicago. That's not to be taken as if they actually went to Chicago. It's only to be taken for the purpose of showing that they were talking about it the way that people who are in a relationship would talk about things. Okay? You may proceed.
All right, if you can turn to the projector behind you. The top message, is this what you were talking about from November 2021? It looks like that there was communication between the two of them.
Yes, they go back in the forensic extraction, go back further than that.
Sure, this is not the beginning, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, but this is the end of that. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. The next message, and let's get this correct. The top one is from Jasmine, is that correct?
Correct.
And so the ones on the left and the darker are all going to be from Jasmine, and the ones on the right are going to be from Jason?
Yes.
Okay. And then when is this text, can you see when that is sent by Jason?
It's April 29th, 2022 at 3:37 p.m.
He reaches out to her for the first time since November 2021.
Correct.
Okay. And she says, I do have you on my phone. This is Jason, but how do you know me? He says what?
This is, it looks like, can't tell if this says WA or we matched on Bumble a while ago. Kind of things.
She says, oh, well, you must be all right if I gave you my number. Would you mind sending me a picture of yourself so I know who I'm speaking with? He laughs at must be all right, right?
Yes,
And then he sends a picture, correct?
that's correct.
And then he asks her what she looks like. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And then she sends a photo of her.
Yes, that is correct.
He loves the image, and then he goes straight into the 7 to 8 work for you tonight.
Yes, that's correct.
We're not going to go through all these messages. The jury will happen in the deliberation room, but we're going to go through some of them. Okay,
Okay.
Mr. Crawford. So after he says, does 7 to 8 work tonight work for you? She says, what?
I'm busy tonight.
Keep going.
And my girlfriend wanted me to stay with her this weekend.
He says, how about later in the night? is an all-night thing, but tomorrow during the day I was gonna go to Rainbow Falls by myself if you'd like me to join. It's a little hike to a little waterfall, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so now we've picked back up to help the jury here. We're to October now, correct?
Yes, I believe it states text message from Jason outwards on October 10, 2022 at 9:10 p.m.
And that's the month before she was murdered, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and he says, how's the Chicago update look? How's it look like? She says, let me know by noon, question mark, plus I said I would get it to you by Monday before you told me you were going to your parents for the next couple of days. I don't want to bother you while you're gone, while you're out there. Yes, my answer is yes. I got it worked out. We got my office covered for a while. I'm gone. Mark me as coming with you. Is that right?
That's correct.
Then she says, and excited. And he says, yay, God is locked in. I'm so excited. This is going to be so fun.
Is there questions here?
Going over the exhibit that's already in there.
Right, but
I can ask him if he can read every single one, Judge, or I can just read it.
Well, the objection is there's not a question. The response is this is already in exhibit, so whether she wants to read them from the jury or to have the witness read them, or a combination of both, should be fine. So over.
He says, yay, God is locked in. I'm so excited. She says, you are serious. Again, we're still on 10/11, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then we'll fast forward just a day, but she said, we are doing this. He said, let's go. I can't wait. We're still on 10/11, correct?
That's correct.
Neither of us are 25 yet. How are we planning on getting around? He says we can just call an Uber and everything is completely walkable. She says, okie dokie, I will stay with you then, and perfect if we have time. I want to see an uncle I have out there that I haven't gotten a chance to actually meet. How does that sound? I haven't even told him yet that I'll be in the area, and if we don't get free time for me to go, that's okay. And if it comes up, kind of thought, I'm good at walking, have never, I Ubered, so glad to have you with me if needed. It's been years since I've taken a trip, and I've never taken one. For just me or with a guy, I'm excited. I'm glad it with you, glad to have been invited. How's your parents going? They glad to have you home. She loves, yes, you silly bunny. Does that mean that he sent it at some point?
Yes. When it states loved, it's no different than, depending on what platform you have, obviously we've identified these as being iMessages. So it's essentially you click on it and you put the little responding emoji, right? So essentially is the way it's going to print out on this report. It doesn't like emojis per se. That's when we're seeing those, the data, we explained in those text messages, it just drawing out data. It's going to simply just say loved, and it's indicating that there was a message prior to that, but it's not there anymore, but it still picks up, the extraction still was able to get the loved part, but not the original message that was loved.
He says, yeah, for sure, that'll be cool meeting your uncle for the first time. It's been great being at home. Got to get some family time whenever you get the chance. Shares those moments. What about you? We're still on 10/11. She says, I'm glad you're a family man. Loved, I'm glad you're a family man. Wait, I don't know if I can fly anymore. I don't have my passport or been vaccinated. That's Jasmine. He says, they don't check if you're vaccinated anymore. Also, you can fly with just your license instead of passport. All right, in this exchange, we've moved to 10/20. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. She says, oh, and I got you some hand sanitizer so you don't have to use mine. It smells really, even though I think my scent might linger on you a bit. He loved, oh, and got you some hand, he loved that text, correct?
That's correct.
He says, I'm going to the airport now. She says, I'll wait for you. He says, are you there right now? She said, about to be back, left the ticket I got earlier at home, so I had to go back. Now I'm here. So she's at the airport. He says, I'm here, correct?
Correct.
All right, and then we go to 10/26. She says, let me know if you want to share. And then he loves something about Durban poison. One looks really good. And then it appears that they don't talk for 2 days, right?
Well, the statement before you said, just to clarify, She said he loved it. It would be her loving his.
I
His
apologize.
text.
That's right. So since she's loving it, it's something that he sent. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then they don't talk for 2 days.
Yes. Per this text message group, they do not talk.
She says, you good? All right, this one, handful of days later, and granted, Investigator Crawford, will you verify that I am skipping over some messages?
Yes.
Is there anything unique about the messages that I'm skipping over?
No, there's, I believe, per the extraction, somewhere just under 1,400 messages that were extracted.
Okay, and to your knowledge, based on your review, is there anything that stands out about the messages that I'm skipping over, or is it just conversation?
It's just conversation. The only thing that stands out is we actually see in this one where it says emphasize and like. It's showing the actual like and the emphasizes I was talking about earlier, but it's not showing the original one that they're doing, which it's not there in the report, meaning it was either deleted or not recovered.
And even though I'm skipping around a bit, are they consistently chatting with one another during this entire time?
Yes.
Is there ever a time where one of them is texting way more than the other one?
No, I would say it's a typical text messaging between two.
Okay, so she emphasized something that he had sent, so that was spicy hot chocolate. Now that sounds interesting. Then he liked something she said, which is, oh, and you should go to the Sut Creek Drive this week before all the leaves are really dropped. Do you know what Sut Creek Drive is?
I'm familiar with the area. I can only assume it's a typo. I'm not familiar with the Sut Creek in the Chattanooga region.
Okay, and this is November 1st.
That is November 1st at 11:07 a.m.
And then she says she just got into a car accident on 11/1.
That's correct.
All right. And then in November 1, he says, dang, that's awful, glad you're okay. She says, yeah, me too, on the 2nd. The morning of the 2nd at 6:34, she says, yeah, me too. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then on 11/3, it doesn't appear they text anymore on the 2nd. Would you agree?
That's correct.
And then she says, if you try to get a hold of me and I don't respond, I'm not upset or anything, just going to be gone for a bit, and I'm not taking my phone. She says, and you know, I'm really sorry if I missed your birthday. I would have really enjoyed celebrating you. Happy birthday. At 11:51 on 11/3/22.
That's correct.
And then on 11/3, he says, thanks, and oh, where you going? And she doesn't respond again until 11/7, does she?
Correct.
And she says, just needed a break. And then later in the day, she says, Jason, question mark. And then they don't talk till the next day. He says, hey, sorry, just been tired and a bit sick these few days. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
On November, is that 16th, he says, I don't think I'll be able to make it. There's some things I'll have to get done by the end of the month. It's been busy. Hope y'all have fun, though. And then she says, oh, good luck getting them done on time. No problem. Just wanted to make sure the invitation was there. We don't know, based on this, what they were talking about, right? Where he was going to make it or not.
Not based on this. No.
Okay, and then he loved her previous message. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then on 11/18, she loved, thank you, that means a lot, and not yet it come. She loved one of his messages that said that.
That's correct.
Okay. Don't know what that's referring to. And then he laughed at, no, it means I need to be one on the diet and you eating a bit of sweets. He says, update, gym was closed, so I did yoga instead. On 11/18, he says, I'm heading home now. If you want to come over for some fun shower time and cuddles for a bit. She says, oh, nice, just cuddles, maybe shower time. I really haven't been feeling too well. He says, okay, I'll babysit you for a bit. 11:18, I'm almost home if you want to start heading over. She laughed at, okay, I'll babysit you for a bit. And then 11:18, it's 7:18 p.m. She says, here on November, then we move to November 20th. So no conversation between the 18th and the 20th. He texts her and he says, you gave me inspiration to get some donuts today. She says, oh, that left back corner looks good. How were they and where did you get them from? He says, she loves, you gave me the inspiration to get some donuts. She says, it's funny that I had you the inspiration because you gave me mine. 11/20/2022, he says they were so good, got it, tasty donuts. I ate the coconut icy chocolate one. 11/20/22, what are you doing this Wednesday, by the way? You'd agree that 11/20/2022 is 2 days before 11/22/2022.
Yes, that's correct.
And what day of the week was 11/22/2023?
It was a Tuesday.
11/23 was a Wednesday?
Correct.
Okay. He says, what are you doing this Wednesday, by the way? She says, nice, that one looked good too. It sounds like you. He says, great, let's get a light workout in and then we'll go out for dinner and drinks. She says, okay, that sounds nice, like a real date. He says, perfect. Anyways, I have to go to the lab and finish some work. Looking forward to Wednesday. She loved that last text. She said, have a good lab and get homework done as well as some sleep. Looking forward to Wednesday. She says, I'm glad you feel it went well. I'm sure you were not overdressed. You always look amazing. She says, I could FaceTime you right now and show you my house. And then she says, well, never mind, I'm leaving before the message is delivering. He says, on 11/21/2022, hey, don't text and drive, LOL. She loved, you can if you want, but I think I like you as my mans. He loved, you can if you want, but I think I like you as my mans. 11/22, she says, are you at the gym yet? He says, yeah, I'm just finishing up now. What's up? She loved, not really ice cream, more like a silent hug, but I just got here and see the fam talk later. Why did we not see that text, Investigator Crawford?
It's simply not there. It's been not recovered / potentially deleted.
Okay, and then it says, she says, my schedule will be touch and go for the next few days, is what the doctor said. So I'll keep you as posted as I am. She says, on 11/22 at 4:38, she loved, I'll give you the biggest hug. So he said, I'll give you the biggest hug, and she loved it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then, on 11/23, at 11:46 a.m., he sends the text with the matcha drink saying, good morning, slept like baby, made myself a matcha.
That's correct.
And then later in the day, which we've already seen, but now we're seeing it in a different version that's been made an exhibit. Hey, are we still good for dinner tonight? Is that right?
That's correct.
And then at some point, randomly on 11/29, he removed a question mark from a previous text that appears to be the text from 2022. Are these their last known communications with one another?
Yes.
Did you see anything about an argument?
No.
Did you see anything that indicated that he was more into her than she was to him? Or vice versa? She was more into him than he was to her?
I did not see anything indicating that she was. The only indication from the beginning is he initiates contact twice during the period of the relationship in terms of when the relationship first began, when you had the few month separation, and then began again in April. After the April time frame, it seems to be pretty consensual.
And 3 days before he murders her, he's asking her to come over to his apartment on the day he murders her.
Yes.
One second, Your Honor. Nothing, Your Honor.
Cross.
Thank you, sir. Slightly tired. Investigator Crawford, let me ask about the bathroom at Jason Chen's apartment. You said that was blood up on the wall?
I presume to be blood.
Presumed, okay. Was it tested?
It was sent for testing and TBI did not test it.
So you can't see definitively whether that was blood?
I can't, I'm not a DNA technician.
We just went through a lot of text messages. Have you ever met a 22-year-old girl?
No.
Me neither. Would you be the best person to decide how a 22-year-old girl thinks?
I did. I'm married and I've been with a 22-year-old girl, so I know how conversations are had, but I've never been a 22-year-old girl.
So your subjective opinion of whether someone thought they was more into the relationship than the other might be different than someone else's subjective opinion.
I believe in the matter of this case, the only person that would know what she was thinking would be the victim herself.
But anyone, like this jury, could go and read those text messages and then decide for themselves whether what you said in your direct examination is right or what I said in my opening is right?
That's correct.
And they can do that for themselves.
That's correct.
You said, so we saw a lot of text messages where you saw liking or loving, and you don't see that message previously.
That's correct.
So, and you said either Cellrite just didn't pick up on it or didn't, what was the word that you used?
I said the potential probable outcomes that I've observed with my experience with Cellrite reports, the first, the most common, is deleted. If something is deleted, now it will specifically say in the report that if an item has been recovered, such as a text message that was deleted, it will specifically show in that Cellrite report as a deleted text message that's been recovered. In this specific report, it doesn't denote any text messages that were recovered that have been deleted, but it simply, there are no text messages there that should be there in a normal conversation. Now, they could have been potentially not extracted. It's a possibility, but the higher probability is that they have been deleted somehow.
So the non-extracted messages that we can see there, it's only on the messages that are liked or loved or some type of, when you push on. So you have Android or iPhone, right?
I have Android.
And you know when you go to a message that someone sent you, you can press on the message, right?
That's correct.
And you can put a emoticon or emoji or something on it.
Yes, that is correct.
It only seems like the messages that weren't put out by Cellrite were the ones that were liked, loved, or some type of emoji was added. Isn't that fair to say?
I wouldn't say that they weren't put out. I believe the recovery process in Cellrite is different for those liked ones. Like they can be stored slightly different because they are being identified in a different way, having that emoji attached to it. So I couldn't say that those are the only ones because there also are other, in my observations, there's also text conversations that are being had where it appears someone's having a conversation and having replies, in my observations, to messages with no further context. So I wouldn't say that the liked, the emphasized, the loved ones are the only ones that are potentially.
So if you only look at these text messages in that view, that would be right. But Jasmine and Jason communicated other ways.
They had phone conversations.
And in those and I'm sure you've regularly texted someone after you've had a telephone conversation. So that text message might seem random in a text message, but it might be relevant to a recent telephone conversation.
It's possible.
And so in this case, it might be a good idea to cross-reference the cell phone logs, the telephone logs between Jasmine and Jason, right?
Yes, I did.
And the text messages.
Yes.
And the jury can do that too.
Yes.
One more.
Sir?
Thank you, Detective Crawford.
Can you read that?
Nothing for Judge.
Jury have any questions for Investigator Crawford? One of the jurors asked if questions could be asked of Detective Crawford about previous testimony. Where we are on the trial, this witness was called for the limited purpose for what he was asked on direct. So your questions can certainly relate to the talk to this time, but they would be outside the scope of any questions beyond that would be outside the scope. So I'm not enforcing, I'm going to be able to ask any questions about Investigator Crawford's previous testimony. All right, Investigator, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. If you could face the jury one answer, please.
Yes, sir.
Were the other cell phones and tablet the Pace family took from Jason Chen's apartment that were collected in the Pace residence submitted for forensic investigation? And again, we're talking about text messages this time around, so we're talking about text messages or conversation on other apps between Jasmine and Jason. So were any of the other cell phones and tablets the Pace family took from Jason Chen's apartment submitted for forensic investigation?
No, they were not.
Okay, if not, why not?
The items that were taken from Jason Chen's apartment, we had no way of verifying that those items had been in the apartment per se. There's potential to extract them. Decision was made not to extract them at that time. We could verify, due to other circumstances, that some of the items that were taken were collected based on evidence that we had, such as the ID card and credit cards and such. We know that they did cross-reference to be the victim's phone based on the family's description of the phone and the device itself. So there potentially were devices of Jason Chen's, or I don't know.
Do you know if any Arctic footage exists and was reviewed that shows Jasmine Pace visiting Jason Chen's apartment prior to November 22nd, 2022, and there's a specific date here, specifically November 18, 2022?
No. The simple answer is no. Due to the disappearance and the multiple contacts that we've had, our family members, friends that had Jasmine Pace, we knew her whereabouts prior to after the 23rd. And simply during the course of investigation, we proved.
Presuming that the state's testimony and again, I must remind you the admonition not to talk about the case, not to expose the media. With that, I hope you get a good night's rest. See you back tomorrow at 9. I believe the last exhibit was exhibit 222. Please be seated. Therefore, we'll make exhibit 223. The letter you're wanted to write home. It's a personal letter, but since we do not allow communication unless it's been reviewed, both parties have looked at this letter had no objection to the jurors sending it to his wife, basically giving her comfort while he was gone. But for the appellate purposes, we're going to keep it as Arthur Adioni, 223.
Yes.
Under seal. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, any other matters to take up before you want?
I just need to understand timing. I had a person here ready to go, but I understand the state of the case. I'm just trying to plan.
You have at least one more witness, correct?
We don't know, Your Honor. We haven't made that decision. I'll speak with Mr. Weiss about it, but we also would have multiple motions to take up, well, at least one motion to take up after the state rests. So it seems like there would need to be time anyways before a witness makes a stand.
You could have them 9:30 or 10, I think would be fine. I mean, talk to the state and see how long, if they call another witness, how long they anticipate that witness to last.
Yes, sir.
All right, anything else?
Yes, sir.
All right, see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. It's a recess at 9 a.m.
Bring this way, sir.